Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you an original tune that I had the pleasure of co-writing with him. Now this song actually came about in one of our live lessons. Now if you're new to our channel, we host a monthly live lesson over at rockclass101.com, and each month the subject that we cover is different. We actually are coming up on 50 live lessons, which is just mind-blowing. So if you want to check them out, I'll put a link in the description box below. So in one of our live lessons, Matt was playing this beautiful melody, and that beautiful melody was what you heard at the beginning of this video. Now, I wasn't the only one who noticed this. There were comments on the YouTube video, comments on our forum, and these comments were asking Matt to teach them what he had played. So I let Matt know that, and I asked Matt to develop it, turn it into a song. And he turned it into what we are calling the A melody. Now, he wrote some sketches for a B melody, and I joined in and kind of rearranged and wrote around it. And together, I think we came up with a really beautiful, pretty sounding fingerstyle tune. And I've got to say that I think this piece of music, it's going to be perfect for the beginning intermediate player. It's not super hard, but if that's where you're at and you're playing, it should be a good challenge for you. So let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play the entire tune, but if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for the song. Now also on that page will be the interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this, and then I'll catch you at the end of the video.
Hello, my name is Matt Dahlberg, and today we're going to be learning a four-finger picking high G ukulele tune that Drew and I wrote that features some really beautiful voice leading. It's actually a little riff that I play all the time when I'm warming up, and I can't wait to share it with you. Let's go ahead and dive into Melody A. One important note as you're practicing this is that I like to use what's called four-finger picking, which means my thumb is on my G, index finger here on the C, middle finger here on the E, and ring finger here on the A. It's really important when you're doing this technique to keep your thumb in front of the other fingers and to have the other fingers more perpendicular to the strings. And when you're striking them, you want to try to make sure that you're using the knuckle right here to have a little bit of give to it so that you can pluck up and out as you go with each string, not hooking them and yanking it. If you need more tips with this technique, be sure to check out the link down below talking about it. But otherwise, let's go ahead and dive into Melody A. To start here, we're going to play a C chord, and it's not a normal C down here, but rather a C up here. Take your middle finger, place it on the 8th fret of the E string, index finger here on the 7th fret of the A string. We're going to pluck our C, E, and A together. Then we're going to play the G, E, then the A string again, but tuck your ring finger under here to the 8th fret of the A string. And then finally, pinky here on 10 of the A, and then open on the G. So that measure sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and. Going into the second measure, we're going to go to this C major 7 chord. To do this, leave the pinky where it is. Take the other fingers off, add the index finger here to 7 on the E string. Pluck your C, E, and A together. G, E. A string 8th fret, middle finger is going to take that while the pinky comes off. And then A string 7th fret, just have this index finger collapse so that it can bar across the E and the A strings on the 7th fret. And open G. So measure 2 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and. And the pair of those together, 1 and 2, should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going into the next pair, measures 3 and 4, we're going to continue this little descending line on the E string. It went from 8 to 7, now to 6. And take the middle finger and place it here on the 7th fret of the A string for this C7 chord, which is going to be 6 and 7 on the E and the A. Pluck your C, E, and A together. G, E, A string again, but this time with the 8th fret, adding the ring finger on. And then the pinky all the way up here to 10 on the A. And then open on the G. If you can, hold that index finger on with that 10, because we're going to have an even bigger stretch coming up here. So getting that flexibility is crucial right now. So that measure 3 sounds like this. 2 and 3 and. Going into measure 4, we're going to play a C6 chord, which you might know as this. But this one's a little bit more interesting than that. What we're going to do is we're going to take that previous thing we were just playing, the 6 and 10, and we're going to leave our pinky here on 10 of the A, take our index and move it down 1 fret to 5 on the E. Now this is a big stretch, and it's really important as you're working on this to try to keep your fingers as straight up and down as you can. If you find that your pinky or index finger are doing this, keeping it straight will help open up the hand, and it's like yoga for your hand, so it might take some time, but listen to the sound of that. Really nice open sound. After you've played that, you're then going to play 8 on the A string, which I like to use my ring finger here. If that's too big of a stretch, it's fine to slide the pinky down to the 8 and play that instead. So measure 4 is pretty straightforward. Sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and. And the pair measures 3 and 4 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going right into measure 5, this is my favorite chord of the song. It's called an F minor 6. You just move your index finger down to 4 on the E string. Take your middle finger, add it here on the 5th fret of the A string. Pluck your C, E, and A together. G, E, and then we're going to play 7 on the A string with the pinky. And then 8 on the A string with the pinky. Open G. So that sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. Going into the next chord here, we actually want to keep these fingers where they are. We take our middle finger off. Now you notice how it's at 4 and 8, right? 4 on the E, 8 on the A. Just take those and move them each down 1 fret. So now it's at 3 and 7. And that creates this C chord here that we need to play. So that's with our index and pinky fingers. After we pluck the C, E, and A, we're going to play the open G. And we're going to play the E and A together, but the A string is going to move off the pinky here on 7 and move the ring here on 5 of the A. Leave the index where it is. We're going to play the G string. Then we're going to play the E and A again, taking the ring finger off, making sure that index finger is barred across the E and the A string's 3rd fret. Then open on the G. So measure 6 sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and. And measures 5 and 6 should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. Now we're going to go into this D7 chord. This is a little bit tricky. Take your middle finger, place it here on the 2nd fret of the E string, because we're going to pluck our C, E, and A together. And then you're going to immediately have to have this index finger here on the 2nd fret of the G to play that. So that's what makes this tricky and why we want that middle finger to go here. We'll play the E, play the A 2nd fret with our middle finger, or excuse me, our ring finger coming underneath our middle finger. Move that ring finger up 1 to 3. Play the G. So 7 is like this. 2 and 3 and. Going on to 8, it's going to play this G7 sus4. Index finger here on the 1st fret of the E string, pinky finger here outstretched to the 5th fret of the A string. Pluck your G, E, and A strings all together. Then play C, E, C. And then we're going to play 4, 1, 5. This is a beast. So what this is the ring finger stretching over to 4 on the G. Index is still here, 1 on the E, and pinky here on 5 of the A. Quick tip is if this ring finger is touching the C string, it's not a big deal because we want that melody to come through. And so the C string, if you can leave it, can certainly add some unique resonance, but that stretch becomes a lot harder if you need that to be that articulate. So it's okay if it comes down a little bit, just making sure that you're hitting that 4, 1, and 5. So measure 8 in time should be something like this. 2 and 3 and measures 7 and 8 together should be something like this. 2 and 3 and now from here we go on to measure 9, and what's neat about measure 9 is it's just a continuation of what we've already played. In fact, measure 9 is exactly the same as measure 1 in every single way. Nice, right? But when we go to measure 10, it's not the same as measure 2. Just a little bit different. We're going to stretch our pinky out here to 12 on the A. Take your index and place it here on 7 of the E. And we're going to play our C, E, and A together. And then we can slide that pinky down to 10 on the A. So rhythmically, it's much the same as measure 4, just with a little bit different of a chord. And it sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and... And the two of them together measures 9 and 10 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and... So measure 11 is just a little bit different than measure 3. It's going to start off with the same C7 that we played before with our index and middle finger. It's going to play the open G, just like we did before. But then it's going to play the A string 8th fret, which we just add our ring finger here. Open G, then pinky finger out to 10 on the A, and then open G again. So rhythmically, it's just a little bit different where those melody notes are falling, but it's the same overall movements. And so it sounds like this in time, measure 11. 2 and 3 and... Going on now to measure 12, it's exactly the same as measure 4. No difference whatsoever. So 11 has a small variation, and then 12 is exactly the same. So 11 and 12 together should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and... Now as we go on to measure 13 here, 13 is going to be very similar because it's exactly the same as measure 5 was. And then measure 14 is exactly the same as measure 6 was. So a lot of repetition happening in this song. So here's what 13 and 14 sound like together. Should be something like this. 2 and 3 and... As we go on to measure 15, it's that same spicy D7. It's exactly the same as measure 7 was. And then as we go on to measure 16, it starts off exactly the same as measure 8 did, but the very last chord is different. On measure 16, what we're going to do is instead of that stretched G7, we're going to go up to a G7 like this. Bar your index finger across the 5th fret of the C, E, and A. Take the ring finger, add it here on the 7th fret of the E string, and pluck all 4 strings. You can also use your thumb to strum through if you like that. So measure 16 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and... And measures 15 and 16 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and... Now from here it goes on to melody B, but before we do that, let's go ahead and hear what melody A sounds like all the way through. So this is starting with measure 1, going through measure 16. Should be something like this. 2 and 3 and. Helps if I play the right first chord, doesn't it? Sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and. And from here we go on to melody B. Now melody B is going to feature some embellishment techniques, specifically slides. So we're going to start here with this F sus2. All that we do is take our index finger, place it on the first fret of the E string, pluck our C and E together, and slide that finger to the third fret of the E string. And then we're going to play the open G, open C, play the 3 on the E, and slide up to 5 on the E. And that's the whole measure. Really important though, with the slides, you don't do them immediately. It's hold the note for the 8th note, then slide it. And in time, that ends up sounding something like this. 2 and 3 and. As we go on to measure 18, the hardest measure of the song, we're going to play open on the G, open on the E, open on the C. Just kidding, it's not that hard. And so 18 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and. And the two of them together sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going on to measure 19, we're going to play that same F sus2. Same slide, same G, same C. But then we're going to play 3 on the E again with the index. We're not going to slide this time. We're going to take our pinky, stretch it out here to 7 on the A, pluck that. So measure 19 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going into measure 20, we hold this index finger where it is, take the pinky off and add the ring finger here on 5 of the A, pluck our C, E, and A, and our G this time too, for all 4 strings. So measure 20 in time is something like this. 2 and 3 and. And measure 19 and 20 as a pair should sound something like this as you go through. 2 and 3 and. Going into measure 21, we're going to go down to this nice little F add 9, just the index finger here on the first fret of the E string, and that's all. Pluck your C, E, and A together. Open on the G, 2 on the A with the middle finger, open on the G, 3 on the A with the ring finger. So that sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and. Going into 22, we're going to take this index finger, slide it up to 3 on the E string, add 4 on the C with the middle, play those two together. Take that same shape, slide it down 2 frets, so it's at 2 and 1, play them together. Take that off and play open on the C and E together. So in time, measure 22 is something like this. 2 and 3 and. And 21 and 22 together should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and. Going into 23. 23, another really difficult section. We're going to take our middle finger, add it here on the second fret of the C string, pluck our G and C together, and then play open on the E, 2 on the C, and that's all there is to it. That sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. And now as we go into measure 24, the hardest measure of the song, I am truly kidding, open on the C, and we let that ring for 3 beats. That sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and measures 22 and 24, or excuse me, 23 and 24 sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. Now from here, it gets a little bit spicy because we're going to go way, 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 way up the fretboard on the ukulele. So if you only have 12 frets, you might want to grab another ukulele because we're going up to 15. In this particular case, we're going to take our index finger, place it here on the 12th fret of the A, middle finger here on the 13th fret of the E string, pluck those two together, and then open on the G. 14 on the A with the ring finger here, open on the G. 15 on the A with the pinky finger here. And then that sums up that measure 25. Should sound something like this in time. 2 and 3 and. And then from here, we can actually take this and sort of slide down. So this C5 chord on 26, our middle and pinky fingers are already in position. We just need to slide them down to 8 and 10. Middle finger here on the 8th fret of the E string, pinky finger here on the 10th fret of the A. Pluck all 4 strings together. Then 7 on the A with the index finger, take the pinky off. 8 on the E, which is already there. So measure 26 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and. And 25 and 26 in time should sound something like this, which is actually the hardest stretch in the song. 2 and 3 and. Going on to 27, 27 is exactly the same as 23. No variations whatsoever, which leads into 28, which is a C chord. Ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the A string, strum through all 4 strings to finish the tune. And so measure 28 in time is 2 and 3 and. And 27 and 28 should sound like this in time. 2 and 3 and. So that we can hear it, here's the entirety of the melody B being played, starting with measure 17 through the end of the tune. Should sound something like this, nice and slow. 2 and 3 and. And there you have it. There is this really fun melody that's using a lot of voice leading as it moves through. You'll see that it sort of has this nice little descending line that goes, and that's just what makes it so appealing. Now, if you are working on this and you keep messing up by playing the wrong string at the wrong time, it might be okay. A lot of these notes are filler notes. And if you're playing, where it says to play like G, E, if you're playing E, G as filler or something like that, it's really not that big of a deal. In fact, it was really hard for me to do this tutorial as well as the performance because I like to change it up so much as I play it. I like to just kind of riff on it, and it makes it so that when I have to shoehorn the same rhythm, it feels kind of non-intuitive. Now, for learning it, it's a great idea because it gives you a structured way to work on it, but as you're playing with it, it's okay to have some flexibility with those filler notes. As long as the melody notes, the movement notes are well represented, you can kind of do whatever you want with it. So I hope you enjoy this. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys next time on the next tutorial here on Rock Class 101. Thanks so much.
Alright guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a ton of fun. The way this song came about was really, really cool because it really came about because of you guys. Without you writing all those comments, asking to learn how to play it, I don't think we would have fleshed it out into an entire fingerstyle song. So thank you guys. So guys, I wanted to give you a friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs to print off, keep for your records, that was available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for the song. Now also on that page were the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewers, so you can literally hit play, you can watch that tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars, the loop section, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed learning this tune, and we'll catch you in the next lesson. Take care.